Good morning, and welcome to Mystical Teachings from the Tanya. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zurich and Kadesh in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. We're on Facebook. We're also on Clubhouse. Welcome, Vilma, Clubhouse. Thank you for joining. On Facebook, we have with us right now Erica from Norway. Thank you for joining. Joe from Florida. Michelle from Boker Tov. To you. From where, Michelle? John from North Carolina. Shalom. And Robert is with us from Boston. Irma in St. Martin. Good morning. Marjan from Atlanta is with us. Say hello to my daughters, please. Teaches with my daughters in Atlanta. It's great to have you. Eleanor from Amsterdam. Good afternoon. David and Batcha from Montreal. Thank you for joining. And Robert from Peterborough, England. Thank you for joining. Rena's with us from Colorado. James Boker Tov, Susan from Scranton, Pennsylvania. Good morning, Eugenia from Calgary, fellow Canadian. There. You know what? They should tune in. Maybe it would help the Royal Palace and the things they're going through. Michael, greetings to you and good afternoon to you in Germany. Devorah is with us from Oklahoma, Boker Tov. Sandy, good morning. Kathy from Lake City, Florida. Casey from Missouri. Cormax from Ireland. Shalom. Gonzalez from New York. Diane from London, Ontario. Tim is with us from Texas. Shalom. Joey from upstate New York. Welcome. Jean from New Jersey. Gianna from New York, if I remember correctly. Denise and Linda, good morning. Russ from Boca. Sorry, Eleanor, she's from The Hague in the Netherlands. Fred from South Africa. Marla's with us. Jay, shalom. Okay, wonderful. All right, folks. We're continuing in understanding and the teachings of the Alter Rebbe, how we are in control of our destiny and destiny of the entire world. And it's really very powerful, empowering to say the least. And today we're going to deal with a couple of important points in continuation of yesterday's thought of how we can eradicate evil. Now, most people, evil is either you stay away from it, run away from it. So you run up to the top of a Tibetan mountain, right, because you want to stay away from evil. You don't talk for years, as some, Buddhist monks might do, because, that's a way that you can make sure no evil gets to you. Others, they fight evil, fire with fire. And sometimes that's necessary. Sometimes you have to fight it by running away from it. Sometimes you have to engage it, fight fire with fire. But the long-term way to deal with evil is neither one of these ways. Sometimes it's necessary, one of those two ways, but that's not the long-term solution. The Alter Rebbe tells us what the long-term solution of dealing with evil in the world, and it's a unique way. And so let's back up for a moment. We're going to get there once we get clarity of where we're going with this. So we said we're in control of our destiny. We can change the world for good and actually bring the final redemption. It's literally in our hands, as we explained. that through doing a mitzvah, we literally are not just bound up with God in the act of doing the mitzvah, but our animal soul likewise is. And not just our animal soul is bound up with God, but the physical object that's engaged in the act of doing the mitzvah ascends to and being absorbed in holiness. But even more than that, the food and drink, as we spoke about yesterday, the food and drink that we use that gives us nourishment is not just a means to an end, but it's an end in itself, because it too is absorbed in the divine. And when we, as I mentioned yesterday, and really something important for us to take note of, is that eating with that notion gives us a power that we would not have otherwise. That the food isn't controlling us, but we're in control of it, which is an amazing byproduct. Now, we continue with this idea. Alter Rebbe says, there's the totality of the Jewish people that is, in general sense, 600 general souls. That's the totality of the Jewish people. We are subdivisions of the 600,000, each and every one of us. Imagine a tree that had 600,000 branches. From those branches, there's twigs, and each and every one of us is a specific leaf, right? I don't know if that's a good metaphor, but you could use it. Now, our engagement in food, our engagement in material things of this world that are of klipas noiga. Klipas noiga is an admixture of good and evil. In other words, it has potential to be downgraded by misuse or upgraded through proper use. So food, and only kosher food, because for a Jew, because non-kosher food is already not of that nature, which we'll get to in a moment, but is an admixture, depending on how we use it. It will be either absorbed in the divine, or it will be downgraded, if you eat like a glutton, for example, even if it's kosher. So, ultimately, this is the key over here. How will complete evil be annihilated, be removed from this world? And when we say complete evil means not food, for example, because again, we can bring it up or down. But that which is what we call shalish klipas atameus, that are three completely unholy forms of vitality that God gives it vitality. Okay, so let's back up for a moment. How is this evil going to be annihilated? Complete evil. So, as we've mentioned many times, and it's so important that this gets through to us very clearly. There is not two forms, there's not the Godhead and the anti-Godhead, Satan, that there's a battle between the two forces. May the best man win. No. That's not what's happening. There's only Einoid Movado, there's only God, which means there's only a force of God. There's evil. Where does evil come from? So God gives klipa, noiga, which is an admixture of good and evil. God gives it a force. So we mentioned all those things that have a mixture of good and bad in it, right, is a force that comes from God. That force of klipas noiga, that mixture of good and bad, then becomes the vital force for complete evil in this world. Complete evil of this world. In other words, God's holiness gives vitality to the intermediate level of klipas noiga, of that area of vitality that is a mixture of good and bad. The good and bad gives vitality by reducing the light of God, contracting upon it to such a degree that it's, virtually, not virtually not there, but very, very much hidden, to complete evil in this world. So, as we mentioned, most people deal with evil either running away from it, right? And you know why they run away from it? Because if there's two forces in this world, the Godhead and the anti-God, the Satan, so therefore you're going to run to the Godhead. You're going to run to the God, to holiness, and you're going to remove yourself from the evil, because there's two forces. right? But if there's really only one force in this world, then you don't run away from it. And not only that, you don't even engage against the negativity of that negative force of this world if it's a separate force. What you do is engage in klipas noiga, in the admixture of this world of good and evil, engage in that area in this world, uplift it to the divine, and ultimately, when we do it individually and we do it collectively as the Jewish people, of engaging in this area of the material world and uplifting the klipas noiga to the divine, then ultimately when we have finished that task, what does that mean by definition, ipso facto? Everything that is below it, that third level of complete evil, has nowhere to be nurtured and get vitality, and it will be automatically eradicated from this world. I hope this idea is clear, but it's a very powerful idea. Extremely empowering idea. Again, not fighting the evil, not running away from it, but engaging in a material world and taking that material world that is my portion of that material world that is an admixture of good and evil, take the good that's there, klipas noiga, raise it up to its divine source by engaging it in an appropriate way to be absorbed in the divine. Now, once it's absorbed in the divine, it cannot now give vitality to complete evil of this world. And therefore, ultimately, when I do that in my life, evil doesn't have any place, doesn't have any nurturing, doesn't get any vitality. You know, we see this in human relationships, just to give us an example. When we engage appropriately in the relationship, in a healthy manner, engaging in the relationship, what happens is, we can run away, try to be holy, or try to fight the relationship. But if we engage it in the appropriate way, what happens is, whatever negativity there might be, you give no room for it. Because you've taken that mixture where there's the bad and the good, and you've raised it up to a divine level, and therefore there's no place for a battle. There's no place for the negativity. That's on a human level. I'm just giving that as a metaphor to appreciate this idea. But the point over here is when we do this individually and then collectively as a people, then the klipas noiga, that is this intermediary level of vitality that comes ultimately from the divine and the holy source from God, it gives no access to complete evil, and that's what it means that God will eradicate the impurity of this world, because it's through us. We are the ones who hold the key to the destiny of this world by engaging in it. And therefore, we will ultimately eradicate that negativity. Now, it's of course not enough to eradicate just the negativity. We also have to do positive commandments, and not just the negative commandments, but engaging by raising it. Then we bring from goyla, which is exile, we come to geula, redemption. In English, they're two complete different words. In Hebrew, they're the same word with one letter different, on an aleph, that the aleph, the oneness of God, will be revealed in the world, will be revealed not just today as we understand it in our mind's eye, but it will be revealed to the naked eye, that we will perceive the oneness of God. Again, how is this? By eating and drinking and dwelling in our lives, using materialism in a way that it's lifting it up to the divine. It's an interesting thing. This is my personal thought on this idea. 200 years ago, when the Alter Rebbe wrote this, the average person owned 200 articles. Today, the average person owns 20,000 articles. So, for example, here's a pen I'm holding, right? You know how many pens I have here? Oh my gosh. Well, 200 years ago, a person only had one pen. Now, because of that, there's negative side to this, of course. And what's the negativity is that we don't feel a pen to be precious because we got so many of them. Back in the day, one pen, it was precious. It was special. On the flip side, you know why we have so many physical and material things today? Not that we should be materialistic, but on the contrary, because we should take from the physical world and uplift it and raise it up and absorb and use out in a divine way. That's my take on the materialism today, is that we have so much because so much is necessary for us to have that we can raise it up to the divine. By doing so, individually and collectively as a Jewish people, then we will ultimately, through that, eradicate all of the negative forces of the evil forces of this world as a result. And why is it that the community of Israel, that these, when we do that collectively, is because ultimately this is why God created the world. He created the world for us to engage in it, in the physical world, so we can make this dwelling place for God, that we can reveal the light of God in the world as a result. So, in conclusion, I just want to bring out the idea here, the novelty and what the Alter Rebbe is teaching us here today, is that engagement with evil in this world, most people either run away from it or they fight it, fire with fire, right? So, Alter Rebbe is saying, now, sometimes we need to do that, no doubt. Sometimes you need to run away from it. Sometimes you need to fight fire with fire. But that's not the long-term solution. The long-term solution is engagement in this world, in a material world, taking from it that which is the intermediary level of vitality, which is coming from the Kedusha, the holiness of God, Klipas Noiga, that has a mixture of good and bad. When we engage in that and raise it up, have it absorbed. Our food, as we mentioned yesterday, how do we engage in food? It's not merely just to sustain us. It's not merely, obviously, for the pleasure thereof, even though we're going to have the pleasure. It's a mindset over here. It's an awareness that this food that I'm eating right now is being absorbed in the divine. When I have that, boy, will I engage differently in food. It won't be my topic of conversation. It won't be what life is all about. It won't be what my pleasure is all about, of course. It'll be about the pleasure of being able to do something divine in that act. So that's our engagement. Any questions, any comments? We have over here on Clubhouse, Elliot, Zalman, Moshe, Vilma, Tzvi, Han. Please, if you have a question or anything to share. I know now that we conclude always with internalizing the teachings. How do we internalize it? That when we can regurgitate what was said, then we know we own it. When we can say it in our own words, then we know we own the idea. So on Facebook, people write it up. And on Clubhouse, if anybody wants to share that, please do. Denise says, now, I know now that my actions in this world stem from a mixture of good and evil. I can take through the mitzvah and uplift to the divine. I can engage my good and elevate the material into spiritual. Very good. Another important point over here. When we do an act of a mitzvah, that's a divine act. That's a divine act when we do the act of a mitzvah. If you put it on tefillin, if you give charity, right, lighting Shabbos candles, that's a divine act. What the Alter Rebbe is saying over here is, of course, a divine act is a divine act, but that's not first of all, not our day is not full of divine acts, of commandments that we need to fulfill. Our day is full of things of engagement in the material world. Right? Eating, drinking, working, and so on. So Alter Rebbe is saying over here, all of that engagement is not a divine engagement, because there's a mixture of negativity there. Because we can do work just for my own ego. I can eat just for my own pleasure, or I can engage in those things that have some goodness there and absorb it to the divine by having an awareness that this engagement in business, this engagement in conversation has a divine element to it, that I want to lift it and have it absorbed into the divine. That awareness is what we're talking about, to engage in everything during our day. Now, I'm going to be honest, does that mean you're not going to have the pleasure thereof in your food? Yeah, we're human and we're going to have the pleasure, but it's about an awareness that will allow us to not be merely limited or defined and restricted by just the human condition of seeking pleasure and seeking self-fulfillment, but something greater than that we can do something divine in that act. And that awareness is what's important. Okay, any questions? Rabbi Moshe, maybe you'd like to share with us something. Vilma, do you have a question? Andrew, Elliot, or share? All right. So Benjamin says, I perceive that bad and negativity around me. The way to defeat it is not to run away from it or fight it necessarily. The long-term solution is to engage and to connect Torah and mitzvahs, and to connect in the higher source of redeeming all of the sparks of the world and ultimately bringing Mashiach. Oh, excellent. Very good. Wow, you guys get it? Okay. All right. Clem, wonderful to have you from Brisbane, where it's only 12:30 in the morning. And on the other side of the world, we have from Bakersfield, California, Paula and Greg, where it's only, like 7 o'clock in the morning. Okay. All right, folks. Sharing is caring. Let's share the Alter Rebbe's teachings with others so we can change the world for good, because that's what we're here for. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zurich HaKadoshim in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have a wonderful and great day.